Hi, I'm Tim Sandifer. I'm a principal attorney here at the Pacific Legal Foundation. I'm sitting here with the 250 pages or so of the Supreme Court's decision in McDonald versus City of Chicago, the long-anticipated gun rights decision. Pacific Legal Foundation filed a brief in this case arguing not so much about gun rights, although we hold those to be crucial, but about how the Constitution protects individual rights. The 14th Amendment, which was enacted in the late 1860s, protects every American's right not to be deprived of liberty without due process of law. But it also protects every American's right to the privileges or immunities of citizenship. That is, it protects us against oppression by states. Unfortunately, in the 1870s, the Supreme Court decided a case called the Slaughterhouse Cases that basically erased the privileges or immunities clause from the 14th Amendment. Since then, the court has protected some individual rights under the Due Process Clause instead, but in the McDonald case, the court was asked not only to protect gun rights against the interference of state governments, but also to revive the Privileges or Immunities Clause as a protection for all rights of all Americans against all states. Sadly, the Supreme Court decided not to do that. In the decision that they issued, they said, "We see no reason to reconsider the slaughterhouse cases here. For many decades, the question of the rights protected by the 14th Amendment against state governments has been analyzed under the Due Process Clause. Instead, we therefore decline to disturb the slaughterhouse holding." Sadly, in all of these opinions, that's all that the majority of the Supreme Court says about the slaughterhouse cases. This is very disappointing because one of our institutional missions is to overturn the slaughterhouse cases and restore the Privileges or Immunities Clause to its rightful place in the American Constitution. Fortunately, Justice Thomas issued a very long decision, some 50 pages, arguing just this, that the Supreme Court should overrule the slaughterhouse cases. He points out that the term privileges or immunities is an ancient legal term that protected not just the rights that are granted to you by government, but natural and common law rights that pre-exist the government. Justice Thomas says that when the founders amended the Constitution, they did so understanding the privileges or immunities phrase not to confer many of the rights identified as new entitlements, but as inalienable rights of all men, given legal effect by their codification in the Constitution's text. Now, it's unfortunate that Justice Thomas is really the only justice who discusses the history and the legal precedent behind the Privileges or Immunities Clause, but that's kind of how legal change works in this country. You have to start small. That's what we do here at the Pacific Legal Foundation. We're devoted to protecting individual rights by building up a body of case law that will set precedent that protects individuals against states and the federal government. But as part of that mission, of course, we can't ignore the fact that we make the argument in the court of public opinion and the argument in the academy. That's why we publish law review articles and books in order to argue the fundamental constitutional principles in the area where lawyers and judges will see them and where common citizens can see them. After all, the court may be made up of experts, but the United States Constitution was written for citizens, and it's within the comprehension of regular American citizens. It's our document. It doesn't belong to the Supreme Court justices. As we head toward the July 4th weekend, I hope maybe you'll take a moment to read through the Constitution of the United States. It's very short. It's very easy to understand. I often joke that it takes years of sophisticated legal education to misunderstand the Constitution of the United States. Although we're somewhat disappointed by the McDonald decision, we're gratified that the Supreme Court does recognize that every American has the right, a fundamental right, of self-defense, and that states can't deprive us of that right. As we head toward the celebration of America's independence, let's take a moment to be grateful that we have an institution, we have a democratic process guaranteed by the rule of law in the Constitution of the United States that protects our rights, not only against individual members of the government, but against the majority as well. If you'd like to learn more about the McDonald versus Chicago case and about how Pacific Legal Foundation is fighting to defend our constitutional rights in the courts of law, in the courts of public opinion, and in the academy, please visit us online at pacificlegal.org.
For more PLF videos, visit our YouTube channel.